It's hard to believe there is just one game left in the Calgary Flames preseason, and people are already overreacting.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Today, we're going to be talking about the lackluster performance against the Winnipeg Jets in the second to final preseason game and why it's not that big of a deal, as well as some more movement, some subtraction, some addition to the team, and just how do we approach and evaluate the final preseason game. Make sure you are subscribed to Locked On Flames wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. I do have like a little bit of a cold coming on, so I want to apologize if I sound stuffy. But you know what? You know what else is sick? The performance the Flames put on in their defensive zone. Yeah, so that was the thing that happened. 5-2 loss against Winnipeg. I don't really think you need to put too much into it, and you don't need to read too much into individual performances either. The Flames iced an AHL roster against Winnipeg's NHL roster, and that's it is what it is. It's preseason. I don't think it makes sense to play players that you already, at least in the Flame situation, play players you're like going to have in the NHL. Like it doesn't, if it's more for at this point, like the fringe players and the ones that, are on the cusp of taking a roster spot from maybe one of the other guys or one of the openings. This performance does not mean they can't play at the NHL level. It does not mean that they are a bust. It does not mean really anything other than it was the second to last preseason game. I think that when you are like the Winnipeg Jets were a playoff team last year. So they're a good team. And putting them out there against the Flames probably knew they were going to get dog walked. And it wasn't a matter of winning. Like it was more of a matter of consistently showing up through that 60-minute period, and they just ran out of gas. I would absolutely pin it on that. I think that Hunter Brustowicz looked horrible on some of those like stat graph charts, and it's like whatever. I don't know. I feel like sometimes those graphs like don't accurately depict what you saw on the ice. I feel like Brustowicz has been one of the players to give 110% every game, no matter if, the Flames are up by a few goals or they're, down by 5. I think that he is a player that is consistent, and that's great because the Flames have struggled with consistency for a very long time, and I feel like the only thing that they have been consistently good at is being inconsistent and mediocre. So it's nice to see players that are still like in their early to mid stages of development take these steps and kind of paint a better picture for themselves and put in the work and stand out in a good way versus a bad way or not at all. I don't think Dustin Wolf is going to lose his job because of the performance last night. I think that, there's a lot of things to consider when you are evaluating that game. Look at the defense you iced and look at kind of what you were going up against versus what you had. And I do think that the defense just completely let Dustin Wolf down. And that happens. It's going to happen a lot, I'm sure, throughout his career. It's called Swiss cheese defense for a reason. I don't think anyone calls it that. I think I'm like the only one that calls it. But there's going to be spottiness. No one plays a perfect game 100% of the time. It's just very unrealistic. And I think that they just need to play Cooley and Vladar on Friday to wrap it up and figure out who's going to be playing with Wolf, because it does not make sense to carry 3 goaltenders or to not have Dustin Wolf with your NHL club. I don't care that he's waiver exempt or anything like that. And personally, it just doesn't make sense. I don't think last night's performance is indicative of any, for any player, what they'll look like in the long term. I think that's ridiculous. And that would be a crazy assumption to jump to. But coming up next, we are going to talk about some transactions, including the Flames' latest signing, here next on Locked on Flames. And I want to tell you about FanDuel, because you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Maybe you're interested in placing a little bet for week 5 of the NFL. Cowboys over the Steelers, potentially. Maybe Steelers over the Cowboys. Take the over in points, of course. And maybe you also change your mind on who's going to win the Calder after Macklin Celebrini suffered an early preseason injury that may impact his start to the season. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked on Flames. I hope you're having a fantastic week, and make sure you're following me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. So it was announced earlier this afternoon, that Tyson Barrie signed a 1-year, $1.25 million contract with the Flames. Okay. I feel like we all knew this was coming, and it's hard. I feel like right now it feels like he's taking a spot away from one of the younger guys and things like that. But at the end of the day, he's probably just going to get flipped at the deadline for a second-round pick. And that's fine. I would much rather have a second-round pick for an upcoming draft than a kid who isn't ready to play the NHL level right now. But that's just me. I do feel like there's still a little bit of ways to go with some of the Flames prospects in terms of being NHL ready for defensemen. But again, I was wrong about Zary and Pospisil last year. So I will happily be wrong about this too. But the Flames did assign Dryden Hunt. No, I'm sorry. They placed Dryden Hunt, Walker Duehr, and Jared Tenorti on waivers today. I was talking to a few people throughout the week, and they all said they forgot Walker Duehr was on this team. And I think I think he clears because, I mean, he's nothing super flashy or special or anything like that, no offense, but I do wonder if someone picks him up because he is, like, a good depth piece for a team that may not have a lot of depth. Jared Tenorti will clear, and same with Dryden Hunt. I am not really worried about any of those guys not clearing, and even if they did, okay. But they did assign Asperat, Bishop, Brusnevich, Firk, Kirkland, and Morton to the AHL, to the Wranglers, and that's great. That tells me that they're giving Pelletier one more look, and I think that we're gonna probably see him suit up tomorrow night against, I believe they're playing the Jets again at home. So, I mean, it's good. It is very good. I think that there's a chance he does earn that roster spot simply because he has done it before. And he has shown continuous, growth in fitness testing, in those intangibles, but he needs to find scoring, he needs to be consistent, he needs to find all of that. Um One thing I will say is I have seen some people say that they don't know why Kevin Rooney would start the season with the Flames. I To start the season, like, to me, it doesn't make sense to throw all of your kids out there on game 1 of 82 of an 82 game season. I think you need some of the anchors there, the veterans, to hold down the fort, especially for a fourth line that, no matter how you slice it, is going to be young. I think that Kevin Rooney is a fantastic mentor and someone that takes a lot of pride in his work and, is willing to teach the younger guys and have some sort of, to me, it just makes sense for Kevin Rooney to start out in the NHL. I don't think rushing one of your AHL guys to the NHL this early in the season is really worth it. I feel like you have to, like, give a little room to start the year. And I'm not talking like 40 games. I mean, go in stretches and kind of see where everyone is once the season starts, because we've talked about it. You cannot replicate real competitive in-game competitiveness in practice, and probably sometimes the preseason games too, because you're all playing for the same goal, of course, but it's not like there's not a lot really at stake the same way there is during the regular season. But that does, like I said, Pelletier safe another day. Ultimately, I'm winning. And I do think this is a good thing. I think that him and Rooney do play well together, and they do play very well on the forecheck together. So I'm looking forward to watching them hopefully play together in the NHL. And I just feel like throwing like Sam Morton into the NHL right now would be silly. Let's see how everyone starts out and gets their feet underneath them. Let's see how the rosters both shake out, because there are players that are more than likely going to be bouncing back and forth between the AHL and NHL. It's a long season. You don't want to put someone in a situation that they're not ready to be in for an extended period of time. It feels so silly to just rush into this and be like, that player needs to be in the NHL. You're right. They probably do, but does it need to be game 1? Probably not. I want to see how people kind of find their footing through the regular season to start. I want to see what everyone brings and what this first month of hockey brings. I know that they use American Thanksgiving as a benchmark. I feel like that's fine. But I want to see how the Flames do after the first month, after all of these changes and a full um, regular season without them. I think it's going to be interesting, and you're going to miss Chris Tanev on your penalty kill. You're going to miss Oliver Shillington on your PK. Tyson Barrie, who signed that 1 year, $1.25 million contract today, also is on the power play, the second unit. Okay. I don't know. I'm all for experimenting and figuring out what you need to get done, but at some point I also just feel like just stick with what you know. And coming up next, we are going to talk about approaching this final preseason game and what could happen and what's at stake. It's just also important to note that players, like, there are still going to be roster cuts. And just because you don't see it happening now doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Because tomorrow you could wake up, or probably not, because the waivers are going to happen in the afternoon, but like tomorrow Pelletier could be on waivers. Who knows? Genuinely, who knows? And that's kind of the anxiety around preseason, I would say, especially for like these guys who are on the cusp of uh, playing in the NHL or being sent back to the AHL. So we'll have to see where things wind up and if any of them get a final look in tomorrow night's preseason game against the Winnipeg Jets. And coming up next, we're going to talk about how the Flames should approach the final game of the preseason. Feels like we're finally here. Coming up right after this. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We are here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. Like I had just mentioned, this is a very anxiety-filled time. It's like that those butterflies you get in your stomach before the first day of school. Maybe before, the night before Christmas, like those anticipatory butterflies, and you don't know if you're going to be excited, happy with the outcome, like maybe you're nervous. And I think that's like that it's just one of those hard times. But a very exciting time as well, because last year we saw Zary and Pospisil get called up towards the end of October and, had an incredible first season in the NHL. And I think that's a great reminder that you don't need to start your season in the NHL to have a great season. And anything is possible. I mean, there's so much time between even now and when they drop the puck opening night. Like, there's a lot that can happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of changes happening behind the scenes that we don't see. And maybe tomorrow night we see a roster that looks a little bit more like what we could see next week against Vancouver. But I do think, coming off of last night's game against the Jets, it's going to be about playing a full 60 minutes. And I don't mean for the goaltender. I'm talking about everyone else on that team. You can't just run out of gas or take your foot off the gas just because it's the preseason. Like, this is a good shot. This is your final look and audition before the season. This is like, they say you're only as good as your last performance. So make it count. And I do have a feeling that they're going to split the game, Vladar and Cooley. I think that Dustin Wolf has gotten enough, enough starts. I think that it truly is just down to the wire with these two goalies and what may transpire from here. It's not hard to think that they're just gonna go with Vladar. Just because he does have NHL experience and he has played, more than 5 NHL games and can carry a workload, but also neither him or Vladar, I mean, him or Wolf have carried a true starter, NHL starter workload. So it's going to be interesting to see what things look like there. And I feel like that's just going to have a big question mark on it, even when it's finalized, because I feel like they're going to have to go out and get a goaltender. And I'm not talking like a Jeremy Swayman, like, oh, he's going to take over for Wolf and blah, blah, blah. No, I think that it needs to be a veteran guy that, has backed up. I always come back to Cam Talbot because I feel like Cam Talbot is that guy. He is the perfect person for this role, but I don't see the Flames trading for him. So just to help balance the workload, because but you also look at this and it's like, okay, this is the situation we're in. We just need our starter to get these NHL reps. It does not matter how good, bad, or ugly it is. These are the lumps he needs to take in order to become, Connor Hellebuyck level goaltender. I cannot believe that the season starts in less than a week. That's so crazy to me. Like, this time next week, I will be getting ready to board my plane to Calgary for the home opener. And for the Wranglers home opener too, which is so exciting. I think that it's good for all of us to remember that it is a very long season. The preseason does not determine the success of your team. The first month of October does not determine the success of your team. And that signing Tyson Barrie is probably going to be, another trick for draft capital. And that's fine. Craig Conroy, I have full faith in him. I know, like, that's silly. It's like saying, like, I trust my governor. Or, like, I trust my, like, all my politicians with my life. But no, I think that Craig Conroy has an idea and he's going to execute it. I think that he has done a really good job so far. And until he proves me wrong, I don't want to say I'm ride or die for Craig Conroy, but I have full faith in him. And I'm hoping that he gives players like Pelletier a second look, because while there are guys in the AHL who are deserving of a second a second look, I guess, at the NHL, why not give Pelts one last run before you have to, before you explore putting him on waivers? Meh. I don't know. I know that it stinks. It stinks to think about, but it's going to be a good season. I think, you're going to learn a lot about this Flames team and what the future is for this team. Hunter Brustowicz, why can't I think? Oh, was assigned to the Wranglers today, so he's going to be, really beefing up his own game and refining those skills so he's ready for the NHL. I hope to see, Sam Honzik, Sam Morton. I have a feeling that they're going to trade Kuzmenko. I know that Frank Saravalli reported that the Flames were reportedly interested in extending him. It feels silly to extend him, but if they do, it shouldn't be for more than 2 years. He's 28 years old. He does not fit the game plan of a long-term extension, but again, it's Frank, so we know how he is with Flames rumors. But that will do it for me today on Locked On Flames. Thank you all so much for tuning in and making Locked On Flames part of your day. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. I hope you all have a fantastic evening, and you can follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. But until then, stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay cool, stay hydrated, and be kind.